Well, good morning. It's 9:30, so we might as well start. Welcome, everybody. Are there any declarations of interest? I would have probably thought not on this occasion. I have no urgent items. And I think we just need to approve then the minutes of the meeting of the 16th of July. Any comments?
Chairman, I just got one thought. I'll get my glasses on and I can actually read it then. It was simply to do with a comment I'd made to do with the budgets at the end. It's on page 4, third paragraph down. And it wasn't so much the pension fund that it was actually the pension debt that I was talking about at that particular. So if that could be changed, that would be much obliged. Okay. The answer's the same, the answer's fine, but I just think that it's slightly different meaning.
Any other?
Yes, Chairman. For a point of information, if I may give this, on page 1 of agenda item 2 at the bottom, it says the senior manager, Democratic and Corporate, quoted relevant passages from Knowles on public meetings, confirming that it was permissible for absent members to agree minutes, though it was not necessarily deemed to be good practice. So is the advice then that we can still agree minutes even though we weren't at a meeting? Then it goes on to say it is not good practice. So what should we do?
Well, I can't really make a recommendation. I mean, I was in a situation where you could agree minutes that happened when you weren't even a councillor. So,
Chairman, this is introducing a new item on the agenda. No.
Yes, and I don't think it's not. That's not for discussion today. I don't think. But it's a good point. I think, but probably worth thinking about, but privately.
Okay, Chair, I'm just trying to make the point.
Christine.
With the amendment made by your Vice Chairman, I propose them as a correct record.
Seconded by Councillor. All those in favour? Okay, I think that's carried then, which brings us inexorably to budget monitoring. May I hand you over to Mr. Barrett?
Thank you, Chairman. The report presented before you is our first budget monitoring for this committee of the new financial year and for the committee itself. It's actually been quite difficult to prepare budget monitoring in this year. We have had a reasonable changeover in staff and our systems have not been the easiest to provide the data. We have got to the point now though, that we are able to provide this information to you and it is attached within the report. I've implemented a budget working group currently consisting of council officers, but it will be widened out to include a member involvement to review our budgets and to review the structure of those budgets and the systems we use to report on. And the aim is to actually report back to FAS committee in December with the outcome of that report and our resourcing. So there's quite a lot of work that is going to be going on within the next month or so in preparation for the revised budgets for 2015-16, but also preparation for our 2016-17 budget and council setting process. Quite happy to take any questions on these.
Councillor Bill.
Yes, Chairman, on page 7, paragraph 2.4 at the bottom, we're still advertising for 2 senior accounts posts. Have we had many applicants, or has there been a rush of applications, and where are we advertising?
We are currently advertising for those posts, Councillor. We have had, I believe, 2 occasions when we have gone out to advert and not had any successful applicants. Part of my role is to review those posts and actually see if they are of the right level for us to continue working on the basis that we've had extreme difficulty recruiting to those positions recently.
And secondly, who is doing the work that these 2 people ought to, if they were here, what would be doing?
It's currently a mix of, we have some external support we've brought in specific areas, such as education accounting, but also the work has actually been done by people at low levels of the the pay scale.
Thank you, Chairman.
Christine?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, thank you to Ben for actually bringing a monitoring report to us today. And I think none of us should underestimate the work that Ben is actually embarking on and has got to do with limited staff. So I think we have got to be a little patient. But I would just say, I think before, it would be good to have a member on your workshop, because you don't want to be providing information to members, A, they think is irrelevant, and B, they don't understand. So I think it is important that there is a consensus of the information that is brought to us. However, I have 2 or 3 actual questions on the actual monitoring report. On page 9, could you just clarify the actual overspend under council tax support payable and explain, will that even out by the end of the year?
Thank you, Councillor Saville. Yes, I can explain that. It's, as I understand, it's the full amount is paid out actually at the start of the year,
Right,
by a colleague at Cornwall Council. Adjustments are made within year, so it's not actually the full fixed year position at the start of the year. There are fluctuations, but by and large, the whole payment's provided for.
Itself out.
And what I think what is the real issue is how we profile that budget in the reporting.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue here.
I thought that was probably the case. And also there are 2 other budgets that are overspend, one being HR, well, certainly in areas of those, and another one being IT. Obviously, I can have sympathy with all that's been going on in ICT, but travel, we're overspent transport and travelling costs by over 8,500 in that one, and I think the staffing on HR is also considerably overspent. Sorry.
No,
But we are here to monitor.
That's fully part of the way. If I can refer first of all to the ICT goods, supplies and services line.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The predominant reason for that overspend is that we've actually paid for 3-year licences for Microsoft Office
Fine.
in 1 year. So towards year end, that will be allocated out across the years it relates to. So we've almost had a prepayment.
Good.
In that sense. So that's fairly straightforward. Your first question in regards
I think it was HR.
the HR support. I believe that we've engaged with a couple of consultants for specific projects in the authority of recent times. I believe their costs have been coded to the employee code initially, so we actually need to do some adjustments there and transfer them to goods, supplies and services, and also to the relevant project they've been assigned to.
Thank you very much. Obviously, there are quite a lot of underspends going through, which, is encouraging, but, I think we are here to ask the questions. Thank you.
Councillor O'Neill?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just really like to endorse Councillor Saville's comments and thank the Finance Department for all their work, but I would just ask for some, I appreciate this is probably just for my benefit here, but for some clarification on 2.6, learning and development are carrying an underspend on the training costs line. The plans are in place to utilise the budget for the benefit of all staff. Does that mean that there's an underspend on just training people who are involved in training other people and now we can train everybody with that money, or does it mean something else? I don't fully understand it. I don't know if anybody else does. If anybody does, please let me know. Sorry, page 8, 2.6. It seems to make perfect sense on face value, but every time I read it, I understand it less.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Councillor, can I explain in terms of the figures? The actual budget, as well as containing the member of staff, actually contains the training budgets for the whole staff of the authority. We have an allocated sum in there for that, for all departments. And the reason for the underspend is that we are catching up on our corporate planning process, moving into staff personal development plans. So we're bringing those pieces forward.
So is that the plans that are in place to utilise the
Yes,
the budget for
we've got the
benefit
business
of all
processes
staff.
in place, but we haven't actually spent a great deal on training for all staff yet. So I haven't probably done that clearly, have I?
I think as long as the end result is that the money that's put aside for training is spent on training, I don't think there's an issue.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem to really come across that way, or it seems that it hasn't been that way in the past. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an underspend, would there?
No, in a sense we are catching up because we are putting the process in place, the learning
But
development team.
it's not through a lack of people trying to access funding for learning or training costs, presumably?
No, and we've now got the people and process in place to actually assist the teams to identify staff training needs. We brought in a e-learning Moodle system to provide the bulk of the training leads, but it's also enabling people to select what training they have that's essential for their departments and building that into that cost there.
Okay.
I've got a question on 2.7. Again, I don't quite understand it. I mean, is it largely saying that it's sort of all okay, but it's in the wrong folder? If you know what I mean.
Entirely, Chairman.
Right, okay.
Yes, it's trying to work with someone else's system, and it's the alignment of budget to the staffing, and that's not suiting us in the best way at the moment.
I mean, I can see these things are monumentally difficult to word, aren't they? But fortunately, none of the members are on the plain English brigade, are we? So it's okay. Christine.
Yes, just carrying on from Councillor O'Neill, I think when we reorganised, it was emphasised that actually training of our staff was actually vital, and I hope by the end of this year that money will be spent. I know it's difficult because we have vacancies that and the everyday job has still got to be done, but I think it is really important that, and I look at the Chief Executive as well as the Chief...
Shall I give a bit more clarification around it? Clearly, as part of the reshaping exercise, we identified that the development of our resource locally was really, really key. So we put a significant budget together to enable the council to really get the best out of people and get the best people in place in terms of learning and development. So that's why the post was created. Second part of that reshaping is because clearly you don't want to just spend money on training just for the sake of spending money on training. So the second element that has now been put in place is the personal development plan for each individual member of staff, which is cascaded down from members' corporate plan, so that we're very, very clear that each member of staff is clear what the role needs to deliver, identify when there are gaps in terms of knowledge, capabilities and skills that can be addressed with training, and those training packages are now being put in place. So it's a timing issue rather than a budgeting issue. Yeah.
Richard, I've been ignoring you. Go on.
Quite right.
Not without cause.
Quite exactly, yeah. I was just going to make one general point. Again, now that the accounts for last year have been signed off, or about to be signed off, you can perhaps look at something which I feel has been very important in the past when we're looking at budget monitoring and where there are significant overspends or underspends, just having, rather than just in the summary, where there are some key points made on individual charts, it's sometimes quite useful just to say underspend due to this, due to that, and that would have answered quite a few of the questions that have been asked around the table today. Certainly would be, and I appreciate it's early days, but and it's a little bit of a chore, but certainly over the last few years I found that quite helpful. That when you've actually got, it might raise more questions, but it's basically does keep members up to speed.
Well, Chairman, I am prepared to accept the recommendation that we note the contents, but I would expect by the time of our meeting on the 1st of December to have a far more detailed account. I can understand now why it was too early to get a true picture, but I hope on the 1st of December we'll have far more detail, especially concerning individual underspends and overspends. But I move we accept the report.
Would anybody else like to second the recommendation?
Second the recommendation.
Okay, all those in favour? I think that's very much carried, and that, I think the next part of the agenda is in part 3. Okay, but I need a bit of paper, or is it on here somewhere? I'm looking for it. Right, exclusion of the public. That under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 2 of part 1 of schedule 12A of that act, as amended. Being information that is likely to reveal the identity of an individual. All those in favour? Okay. Yes.